Russia, Germany, and Austria-Hungary all wanted to be the most powerful nation in Europe. They competed to gather the most resources and build the largest empire by controlling other countries around the world. They also competed to build alliances, or friendly associations, with some of their neighbors. The main idea of the alliance system was simple. If one nation was attacked by another nation, its allies would come to its defense. It was a form of self-protection. The system helped keep Europe at peace for many years. Unfortunately, the alliance system could also make conflicts bigger. A small fight between two countries could quickly grow into a large war involving many countries, once all the allies became involved. In 1914, this complicated web of alliances helped bring about the Great War, World War I.
So let's think about the alliance system in terms of sixth grade, right? Alex and I were buddies, right? We're friends. I like Alex. But all of a sudden, Alyssa pushes Alex. As Alex's friend, I said, what are you doing? You stop that. And then Alyssa might push me. And so my buddy Liam's going to come in and say, hold on. You're picking on Miss Gambino. You're picking on Alex. Stop. And so Liam gets involved. Well, now Addie is friends with Alyssa. What's Addie going to do? Yeah, Addie's going to get involved. No, don't be stepping up to Alyssa like that. You need to stop. And then Michael is friends with Addie, who's friends with Alyssa.
I'll be on the other side.
Yeah.
Nuh-uh. You're buddies.
You're best.
Yeah, you're besties. So Michael's going to say, stop picking on my friends, and he's going to step in. And now something that was just between Alex and Alyssa, one little incident has now become a big to-do, and everybody starts taking sides. And all of a sudden, our whole classroom gets involved, right? That's how it works with the countries. The allies stand up for their friends against this country, and their allies are going to stand up for their friend against all of these countries. And what was a small conflict now becomes huge. It spreads over the whole world, right? Because everybody's taking sides and standing up for their allies. So that's how that alliance system can grow into a big war, right? It takes a small conflict, every country starts taking sides, standing up for their friends, and it becomes all these countries getting involved into a big war. So that's question number one. Okay. So think about it at sixth grade terms. Two people have a conflict, all of a sudden all of their friends start jumping in. And all of a sudden the whole classroom's all at odds. Everybody's on a side, everybody's upset with the other side, and it becomes a big to-do. Happens in the world also. So now, like I said, we had two different sides that people were joining. The Allies and the Central Powers. Well, let's learn about those two groups.
War begins in Europe. In 1914, an assassin killed a member of Austria's royal family. Austria-Hungary responded by declaring war against Serbia, the country it held responsible for the killing. The conflict, however, did not stop there. Austria-Hungary and Serbia both had alliances with other countries. One by one, the nations of Europe joined the fight. Before long, the entire continent was at war. On one side were the Allies. On the other side were the Central Powers. Beginning in 1914, the Allies and the Central Powers fought dozens of battles against each other. Many of the brutal battles took place in France and Germany. Millions of soldiers and civilians were killed.
So it starts out just between Austria and Serbia. And then their friends start jumping in. And all of a sudden, all the countries in Europe are taking sides. So when we look at number 2, yeah, there's just 3 lines, but there are a lot more countries that are on the Allied side and more countries on the Central Power side. Let's look at our definitions and let's just write the main ones. So let's look at the Allies.
Allies. During World War I, the nations that allied or united against the Central Powers of Europe. They included Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, and the United States.
So list all of those. Those were the big ones for the Allied powers. What's one on here that's a little surprising? Adeline? And who else? Russia. Are we allied with Russia in today's world? No. We will notice as we see different wars happening, people switch sides. Remember, we fought against Great Britain for the American Revolution to get our freedom. Now we're allies with them. We were allies with Russia during both world wars. Not anymore. So we're going to see what happens with these alliances and why people switch sides. Now let's look at the Central Powers.
Central Powers. During World War I, the nations that fought against the Allies. They included Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire.
Austria-Hungary gets broken up. Ottoman Empire, not around anymore, gets broken up. So we'll see what happens to countries, because do we know who wins World War I? Who wins? The Allies, right? We know the United States was on the winning side, so the Allies win. The Central Powers, well, not good things happen when you lose a war. So we'll learn just a little about it, not a lot. We're not going to focus on it. So now number 3, why did some Americans believe the United States should join the war? Adeline?
For number 2, for the Central Powers, is Austria-Hungary one?
Austria-Hungary, that means it was one country. All right, so let's listen to America's response.
America's response to war. When the war began, most Americans and most Minnesotans wanted the United States to stay out of it. They felt there was no need for the United States to get involved in the issues of European powers. There were some Americans, however, who believed the United States should join the war on the Allies' side. They worked hard to change other people's minds. Americans, they argued, could no longer afford to ignore what was happening in Europe. These people claimed that the powerful weapons of modern warfare, especially airplanes and submarines, threatened America's security and economy.
So a lot of people said, this is a war over in Europe. This has nothing to do with us. Let's stay out of it. It's not our problem, not our fight. Let them fight it over there. But as the war continued on and more European countries got involved, people in the United States started saying, well, should we stay out of it? Some are saying, oh, you know what? They've got airplanes, they've got submarines. They might attack us over here in the United States. We need to make sure that we're secure, that we're safe. So that's part of it. But there's going to be more.
Through 1915 and 1916, the war raged. Concern among Americans increased as rumors spread about German soldiers torturing and killing Belgian women and children. Finally, when German submarines started attacking American ships, the U.S. government decided it could no longer stay neutral. In April of 1917, President Woodrow Wilson called for action. The U.S. Congress agreed and declared war on Germany and other members of the Central Powers.
So now not only are we a little nervous about our security and our economy, now we're hearing stories about them torturing and killing women and children. They're not soldiers. They weren't fighting. What are they doing? Killing women and children. This is wrong. We need to take a stand. We can't just sit back and be a bystander. We need to be defenders. We need to stand up to them. We can't let them do these horrible things. And then on top of that, we still trade with our friends, right? We're friends with Great Britain. We're going to send our ships to trade with them. And Germany starts attacking our ships and sinking our ships. We're not in the war. That's attacking us. That's attacking the United States. Enough is enough. United States gets pulled in. President Wilson says, too much is going on. Now they're attacking our ships. We're going to get involved. Yes? So remember when I said we're not going to focus on the in-depth stuff, we're just focusing on the big things? I'm not sure. When you do like a world history, they might go into more of those specific details. We're just going to kind of skim over the big things that drew us in, because then we're going to focus on how Minnesota dealt with it. So that very well could be, we're just not digging that deep. So these are just the big reasons, okay? Some of us that watched like documentaries and are really into this history, which is awesome, I love it. We know more details. There is always going to be more going on. This is just the big reasons why the United States got pulled in. So that was number 3, why we should join the war. So let's see how Minnesota feels.
Most Minnesotans, even those who wanted the United States to stay out of the war, were eager to support their country once war was declared. Harold Knutson of St. Cloud was one of 4 Minnesota congressmen who voted against the United States entering the war. However, when the voting was done and the country was officially at war, Knutson urged all Minnesotans to put aside their objections and concerns. He believed everyone should join the war effort. "This is your fight and mine," he said. Many of us were opposed to war at this time, but we bow to the wishes of the majority.
Okay, so remember back in the War of 1862 with the Dakota and the U.S. Did all of the Dakota think that they should fight the United States?
No.
Now, we even heard about one of the leaders say, we're not going to win this war. This is not a good choice. But if this is what the Dakota want to do, I will lead you into battle, even though I'm pretty sure I'm going to die in this battle. I will lead you into it because I support the Dakota cause. Same thing here, right? People were saying, well, I don't think the United States should go to war. It's a Europe battle. It should be just the Europeans in it. We need to stay out of it. It's not our place. Oh, hold on. President Wilson says that the United States is joining the war. Yeah, all right. I don't think it was a good idea. I didn't think we should go into it, but we are in it now. So I'm going to support it 100%. Just like that Dakota leader said, I'm probably going to die in this battle, but I will lead us into it because this is what we have decided. So United States decides to go to war, we will support it. Even though it's not where I think we should be, I will support it 100%. So this is your fight and mine. I'm an American. I will support. So now we have to prove our loyalty. Because remember, the United States is full of immigrants. Where did these immigrants come from? Adeline?
Other countries.
Okay. Look at all those other countries. Did some immigrants come from Great Britain?
Yeah.
Did some come from Italy?
Yeah.
Did some come from Germany?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Germany is on the Central Power side, and the United States is on the Allied side. We have immigrants from the Allied side, and we have immigrants from the Central Power side. Uh-oh. We're going to start seeing some conflict there. All right, so let's see what happens.
Proving loyalty. Before 1917, many people in Minnesota believed that the war in Europe was a foreign conflict that the United States should avoid at all costs. Although most of them changed their minds once the United States joined the war, some remained against it. Those who raised questions about the war were often accused of being unpatriotic and disloyal to their country. Throughout the nation, the U.S. government launched a communication program using propaganda, posters, parades, songs, and other methods to persuade Americans to support the war effort. The government encouraged people to show their patriotism by buying war bonds, which were sometimes called Liberty Bonds or Uncle Sam's Bonds. The government sold war bonds to Americans in order to raise money to pay for the war.
So what was the goal of propaganda created by U.S. government? Well, first we need to know what propaganda is.
Propaganda. The organized spreading of information in order to persuade people to adopt a certain position. It typically only presents one point of view.
So what were they using the propaganda for in this situation? Kylie.
To like persuade Americans to support the war.
Yeah. They wanted Americans to support the war because a lot of them didn't want us to go to war. So they're saying, no, you need to support the war effort. You need to get on board with this. So they use propaganda. In today's world, we see propaganda all the time. Biggest place we see it is advertising. Buy this product. It is the best. Buy this one. It's way better than that one. That one's bad. Buy my product. You'll be so much happier if you buy it. Okay, like I said, we are going to delve into what propaganda is all about and the different types of propaganda
Good
that we
afternoon, students.
see.
It's your Tuesday afternoon announcements. Track practice, you are meeting outside after school by the soccer field. You will have track practice today. In other athletic news, varsity baseball beat Maranatha 17-4. It was a no-hitter, and Joseph Lunderby had a grand slam. Nice job, and I don't think they're talking about the breakfast. Varsity softball beat Sacred Heart 14-6. And JV baseball beat Legacy 13-10. Hadley Poston had 2 home runs. Layla Rowling had 1 home run. Congratulations, Royals. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Remember to be kind, be brave, believe, be strong and courageous. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
Okay, so patriotism is that loyalty to one's country. We need to support the United States. Even if we didn't want to go to war, we're still going to support it because we are an American. We are United States citizens. We support. They sold war bonds, which is a certificate that you would buy. And at the end of the war, you get your money back, plus some more money. Why would the United States need to sell war bonds for people to buy at the beginning of the war, Robbie?
So they can have money to like fund the war.
Yeah, they need money to fund the war because it takes money to feed soldiers. It takes money to arm the soldiers with the guns and the ammunition, to get them uniforms. So that all takes money that the United States didn't have right away for this whole big war that we were getting involved with. So they sold war bonds for people to give the government money, promising, well, when the war's over, you'll get the money back, plus some.
Shortly after war was declared, the Minnesota legislature created the Commission of Public Safety, CPS, to oversee the state's war effort. The legislature gave the CPS the power to make and enforce laws in Minnesota. It was best known for cracking down on Minnesotans suspected of disloyalty. Its definition of loyalty was simple. The test of loyalty in war times is whether a man is wholeheartedly for the war and subordinates everything else to its successful prosecution. That meant people were expected to make winning the war their main concern, above everything else in their lives.
So, what is the main purpose of this commission? What was their main purpose? Eleanor?
To make winning the war and be concerned above everything else.
So, to start with, it was used to oversee the state's war effort. And what that means, overseeing that war effort, is to make sure everybody's putting,
Wyatt and Mason Clausen to the office, please. Wyatt and Mason Clausen.
everybody is putting this as their number one priority, right? Doesn't matter if your farm's not doing so well, give money, buy your war bonds, okay? Don't worry about yourself, worry about the country. Put the country number one. That war effort is number one over yourself and your family. Okay, so that's that main goal of the CPS. Now this last paragraph at the bottom here is going to be the first box at the top of the back page. How did the CPS impact these three people or groups? Name at least one impact on each. Let's listen to how German Americans were impacted. We talked about how Germany is on the Central Powers. How were these German Americans who now live in the United States affected?
Germany was one of the countries that the United States was fighting against, so German Americans and German immigrants were among the CPS's targets. The CPS pressured schools to stop teaching German. It censored or limited what German language newspapers could write. It discouraged German music. Because so many people in Minnesota were of German descent, the actions of the CPS affected many.
So they were taking away anything that had to do with Germany, right? Oh no, we can't support Germany at all. We have to support the United States. That means you can't talk German. Well, speaking the language doesn't mean you're supporting Germany. That's just the language that you know. But they were being told to change all of this stuff.
Some Minnesotans responded to the anti-German mood by changing their German names. Families with names like Schmidt tried to prove their loyalty by adopting the name Smith. People no longer referred to sauerkraut by its German name. Instead, they called it Liberty Cabbage.
Thankfully, we can call it sauerkraut in today's world. How many of us like sauerkraut? I love sauerkraut on my bratwurst. Sauerkraut and brats is the best.
I would get that.
So, they had to stop anything that was associated with Germany. They couldn't speak German. They had to change words and names that sounded German because they didn't want to look like they were supporting Germany at all. So we are going to pick up the tensions in Minnesota communities tomorrow. If you are listening to this at home, we just got through that one box on the back side. I hope you are well and hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.